Dan Illman, Mike Beer. It's Rico Woodbine Miles Saturday at beautiful Woodbine. Let's take a look at the field for race number 7, the graded stakes race before the Woodbine Mile, a couple of races before. It's the grade 3 Singspiel, and it kicks off a 20-cent, $100,000 guaranteed pick 4 pool. Field of 10 entered in the Singspiel stakes. Mike, Nakamura, the number 9, 5-2 morning line favorite, has kept good company. I don't know. I'm getting to the point with Nakamura where he's sort of like a channel maker for me.
I get what you're saying. I know that you've been a fan of his, Dan. Boy, listen, he's a pretty good horse, and the distance of this race is no problem for him. He's got to be a pretty tough horse to take at 5-2 in a race like this, though.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race. Remember to head on over to timeformus.com once scratches are made official, because there's a good chance that the likely pace setter in this race, the number 3 Admiralty Pier, will opt to run in the main event, the Rico Woodbine Mile, instead. If that's the case, this pace projector will update automatically, and that would be good news for the 5 Skywire as he stretches out to 1.25 miles.
I guess it would be. I'll take some exception with the pace projector, Dan, maybe just a little bit anyway. I just sort of look at this race and feel like, and I realize that the 7 Tis a Slam is more of a maybe 1 3/8 mile kind of horse, but you know, his connections know what his best running style is. This is a horse who needs to be on the lead to be effective, and I think they'll try and get there no matter what.
The number 1, Say the Word, 10-1 in the morning line, was dangled for a $62,000 500 price tag last time out at Saratoga. Let's watch that race. This is a shocking upset. Blinkers off, 51-1. He's on the outside in the red silks. He has a lot of work to do, but the advantage he has is that they were going very, very fast in front of him, and this pace might be falling apart for Say the Word.
He runs well in here, but you're right. He probably got the best trip in the race as well. Junior Alvarado deserves a lot of credit for the ride to get this horse inside out, never a straw in his path, and he finished very well. The positive thing for this horse, though, Dan, is it's not. I know he was a huge price in that race. It's not like that race came out of nowhere. This horse had some talent early in his career. Maybe he never put it all together, but this horse can run a little bit.
And I really think distance is his friend. They've only raced him 3 times on turf at distances of 9.5 furlongs or greater. That last race where he won at Saratoga, his maiden win at Keeneland, and the Breeders' Stakes, the 3rd Jewel of Canada's Triple Crown at 1.5 miles, where he ran a very good second. I think he wants distance. I think he'll be running late at a decent price for Samsun Farm. The 2 is Sir Sahib. Sir Sahib was beaten last time out, a neck in a blanket finish. He did not have a lot of pace to run at. So the fact that he was running on late is a good sign, but this is a horse that likes to finish 3rd a lot against weaker competition. He's stepping up.
I wouldn't argue, of the 3 coming out of that August 29th race, I won't argue that anybody who would say that this would take this horse over the other 2, even though he finished 3rd. I don't see how you could want any of the horses out of that race, though, Dan. They all look like they're in way over their heads in yet.
Admiralty Pier is a graded stakes winner at middle distances. If he runs here, he would be stretching out 1/4 mile after a runner-up effort in the grade 2 King Eddie. Let's watch that race right now. He set a rated pace on the outside, took the lead in the rail, turning into the stretch, and he's just going to get run over by March to the Arch, who figures to be one of the choices in the Woodbine Mile. He is a solid horse, and if he gets an easy lead in this race, no guarantees. You mentioned Tis a Slam in here. I guess he could stretch his speed 1.25 miles. The distance, though, it is a bit of an issue, even though he is by the distance-loving English Channel.
Yeah, the distance is a big question for him. We'll see if they run here. We'll see how he handles it. If nothing else, I guess you would just say that they're going to try it at the right time, Dan, because each of his last 3 starts on turf, they're all actually pretty good. So he's in good form on the way into this race. I just wonder how far he wants to go, and I wonder if he can get the right kind of trip in this race.
Graham Motion sends up the 4 Standard Deviation, off a disappointing performance at Monmouth. He was kind of in it among horses. Maybe the trip wasn't the best for him, but I wanted to see a little bit more. It was a good field. The winner came back to run 3rd in the Sword Dancer at Saratoga with a 91. The 4th place horse, Arklow, came back to win the Kentucky Turf Cup with a 100 buyer, and he didn't have a lot of pace to run at. So if you want to draw a line through that race, fine, and then you're left with a 96 buyer in the Tiller that puts him in good stead here. He wants distance. What did you think of the United Nations?
I wanted him to run better in there. He did have some trouble at the top of the stretch there. They tried to split horses with him He got bumped and then shut off. And after that, Trevor McCarthy just didn't really ride him out. He just let him sort of fall back through the pack. So the 12-length margin of defeat's a little exaggerated because of that. On the other hand, he was also never in contention at any point in that race. So it was a little disappointing. I thought his tiller was actually okay. Not great, but I thought it was okay. Distance is fine for this horse. I think he's a player in here. If he's around that 8-1, I'll probably use him.
Skywire has yet to win on turf, but he's only raced twice on the surface, and it looks like he's racing himself back into form on synthetic for Mark Cassie. Let's watch his last start, the Grade 3 Seagram Cup, where he's down inside in the pink silks, chasing his favorite, Mr. Ritz, but he's going to really grind it out and grind it out. He's going to get into the two-path, get a little bit of clearance, and he never stops trying all the way to the wire. I think it's too early to tell whether he doesn't want distance. He's tried longer distances twice. I think he's had trips in both of those races.
Yeah, I feel like maybe he's a horse to give one more chance going long too. That's the thing I like most about him in this race. His last two dirt race or synthetic races rather are fine. I think he's run pretty well both times. His turf race off that little bit of a layoff in June, that was going 7.5. I thought he ran deceptively well there. He didn't get the greatest trip in the world, but boy, was he finishing in that race. I have some pretty high hopes that this horse will stay the distance.
And his tactical speed should have him in the thick of things when the real racing begins. Woodbridge is the 6. We talked about that race with Sir Sahib. Let's watch it right now. Woodbridge was 50-1 in this race, and he's on the outside right now. And he's just going to get it done with those cheek pieces on. 83 Beyer speed figure. You're going to see a blanket finish here. I don't know, Mike. This horse is going to have to improve a lot if he's going to win this race.
Yeah, I mean, he really has never run a race through 26 starts so far that's going to make him that competitive in here. I'll give him credit for holding on here, Dan. He looks beat at the end of this race, but he does not let these two horses pass, and he pulls off a big upset. If he wins this race, it'll be 2 upsets in a row.
I think Tizislam has excuses for his last 2 races. I'm really not sure he's as good on synthetic as he is on turf, and they turned him all the way back to 1 mile and a 16th in that Seagram Cup where he could not put his good speed to his best advantage. The Louisville was his first race of a lengthy layoff, and he kind of made an early move. He was fresh in that race. Tizislam, as you mentioned, has speed going slightly longer distances, but he certainly has the class to win a race like this.
Yeah, he does. I mean, his good race, as a matter of fact, would make him really tough in here. Now, maybe he's just not that horse anymore as a 6-year-old, Dan, and he won't be able to get back to his top performances. But his good race makes him really good, and it makes him really tough in here. And I just think they're going to try and make the lead with him at all costs. And if he makes the lead, he's a very dangerous horse.
Count again, the 8 makes his stakes debut, a lightly raced 5-year-old. This is a guy who last time out was beaten by Woodbridge. It looked like he had all the momentum. It looked like he was going to go by Woodbridge. If you want to argue, he didn't break great, and he was up against a slow pace fine. He's got to beat Woodbridge if I'm going to pick him in this race.
I feel the same way. Listen, he's going to be a big price again, a big price this time, rather. So if you like him, I'm not going to knock him, but boy, he really needed to win that race to get me interested.
Let's watch Nakamura's most recent start. This race came off the heels of a good 3rd place finish behind Zulu Alpha and the Elkhorn Stakes. High hopes for this horse coming into this race at Saratoga, where he's run well, and he's on the far outside, and he kind of just runs a Nakamura. Does he just run to the level of his competition, Mike? I'm starting to get a little bit disappointed because I was really high on this horse from what we saw from the Spa from him in 2019.
No, I agree with you. He looked like he had a ton of upside, and for whatever reason, he just hasn't really taken a big step forward. I don't know what to say about that race that we just watched it. I mean, he just never really kicked it into gear there. And it was a field where, listen, he was favored. It was a good field for an allowance race, but he was favored. He was supposed to be really competitive in there, and he just wasn't. And it just makes me wonder how good this horse is.
Let's watch Jungle Fighter's last start. He's going to get beat in here, but I think he was compromised by the lack of pace up front. These 2 horses on the lead were battling it out through moderate fractions. Jungle Fighter was sitting in behind. All in all, it was a good trip. I'm just not sure it was the greatest pace scenario for him. He's going to come and run a decent second. He's always hinted at a little bit of ability, but is another horse that's going to have to step it up kind of big time to win this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess of all the longer prices in the race, he's probably the most interesting, just because he's lightly raced. And I agree with you. I thought as a 3-year-old that he looked like he had some potential. I wanted to like that race that we just watched a little bit more, Dan. I mean, he just sort of went evenly through the stretch. I know he broke slowly in that race, but after that, he got a really good trip, and he just didn't really impress me with his run.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Singspiel Stakes. You're going with Skywire. Good tactical speed. They've always had a lot of confidence in this horse. He was favored in the Queen's Plate last year. He should be in the thick of things turning for home, and his synthetic form is good.
Yeah, I just don't love really anybody in this race, Dan. So I wanted to take a shot with somebody, sort of outside of the more accomplished turf horses that we've seen. And listen, I'm not going to bet this horse. They made him 7-2 on the morning line. I will not bet him at that price, but I thought maybe he'd drift off that. To me, he was just the most interesting alternative.
I usually don't like horses coming off perfect trips and setups at 50-1. And there might be shorter prices against tougher competition. But I just think to say the word's going to be a decent enough price in this race and that he likes the distance. And like you, I'm just really not sure if I love the favorites in this spot. So my angle is say the word likes the distance. Maybe he can come with a run if this pace heats up. You're going 5-7-4-1. I'm going 1-3-5-9. It's the Grade 3 Singspiel. It's race 7. It kicks off a 20-cent, $100,000 guaranteed pick 4 pool with an approximate post of 4:27 Eastern. Best of luck.